Call the meeting to order. This is the Littleton School District meeting for 2017. I ask you to stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and join us for that, and also for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Board Member Jim Annan will lead us in the invocation. If you'd remain standing, please.
Dear God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together as a town. We ask you for your wisdom and your guidance as we present, as we deliberate, as we talk, as we discuss. I thank you that every person in this room is here for the same reason. We're part of this town who loves the school, who loves our kids. So we ask for a spirit of grace and a spirit of understanding to be with us. We thank you for truth. We thank you for your peace now in all of our hearts and minds. We bless you and thank you for this. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. You may be seated. Just a few housekeeping items. Folks should have a card when you came in, if you're a voter. Yeah, you could just hold that up, so make sure. I thought I had one. Okay. Looks like this. Okay, everybody got one? Thank you very much. Now, there are a few non-residents who would be non-voters in Littleton who most likely will want to speak. And I know of some, so I'll mention them. Tom Mangles, who's the business administrator, if you could be recognized, and Kelly Nolan, Director of Student Services. Okay, Kelly. And Mike Elwell to my left, the district attorney. Cecile Healy, who's the district employee, might want to speak. Okay, good. And Barbara Chase, who's the district employee, also may want to speak. Is she? Where is she? There. Just raise your hand. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other people here that may want to request to speak? You may not know it now, but want to get on the approved list. Okay, you've heard these names mentioned. I'd entertain a vote to approve them as speakers if they're called upon. Do we have a motion? Yes, second? Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Approved. And then the front table, I'd like to introduce the folks you're looking at. To my extreme left is Patricia Durampo, who's the school district clerk. Sitting next to her is board member Jim Annan, then Leslie Robbins, Greg Cook, board members, Vice Chair Millie Nelson, and she's pinch hitting for Chair Ann Wiggett, who couldn't be with us tonight. Steve Nyla, Dr. Steve Nylas, his first Littleton School District meeting as superintendent for to second from my left here, and then Mike Elwell. Okay. This, I think Jim covered it pretty well in his prayer. It's your meeting. The purpose of the meeting is for explanations, for discussion, debate, to amend, and to prepare basically for the voting on March 14th, which will be at the Littleton Highway Department garage. So just to have some order, you're eligible to speak on any subject. It seems to have worked for many years to prepare your presentation ahead of time, and we have a mic kind of in center aisle, just kind of line up and we'll let you speak. For the last few years anyway, we haven't limited speakers or the time. Self-limitation seems to have worked well. We ask you not to ask to speak the second time if there's someone who hasn't spoken for the first time yet. But when the discussion gets to a certain point, then we'll bring it to a vote. And the vote basically is place or an announcement that when we're through, the article will be placed on the warrant for voting on March 14th. So as Jim pointed out in his invocation, that the goal of the meeting is to, for this evening, is to achieve what is best for the common good of for all citizens in the community. So I ask that we stay focused on the issues. I don't anticipate personal attacks of any kind, so it's just good manners. Fire exits, just for information, to my left and to my right. If there is a legal matter that comes up, we'd like to settle it tonight, and we have our long-standing attorney for representing the school matters, so we'll consult him if we have what we think is a legal question. So, does anybody have any questions before we get going? Okay. So the warrant, you may have a copy of it, says that to the inhabitants of the town of Littleton School District in the county of Grafton, state of New Hampshire, qualified to vote in school district affairs, you are hereby notified and warned that 2 phases of the annual school district meeting will be held as follows. First session tonight, the annual meeting, deliberative meeting, is Monday, February 6, 2017, 6 p.m., Littleton High School cafeteria, 159 Oak Hill Avenue, Littleton, New Hampshire. You're hereby notified of the first deliberative session of the annual school district meeting to be held at the Littleton School cafeteria, 159 Oak Hill Avenue, Littleton, New Hampshire, on Monday, February 6, 2017 at 6 p.m. The first deliberative session shall consist of explanation, discussion, debate of each of the following warrant articles, except for Article 1. Article 1, the offices that will be voted on at the meeting on March 14th. So except for Article 1, warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by the law shall not be amended. And if that comes up, we'll let you know if it's prescribed by law, so you'll know that. And warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. And C, no warrant articles shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. We're getting used to this SB2 format, so should go well. So the second session of the annual meeting, the official ballot voting, Tuesday, March 14th, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Littleton Highway Garage, 240 West Main Street, Littleton. So you're notified to meet for the second session at the annual school district meeting to elect school district officials by official ballot and to vote by official ballot on the warrant articles as they may have been amended at the first session, to be held at the Littleton Highway Garage, 240 West Main Street, Littleton, Tuesday, March 14th, 2017 at 8 o'clock in the forenoon. The polls are to be open at 8 a.m. and may not close prior to 7 p.m. to act upon the following. And as posted, Article 1 is to elect the following school district officers: school board, 1 member for 2 years, 2 members each for 3 years, moderator for 1 year, school district clerk 1 for 1 year, and treasurer 1 for 1 year. So bringing us to the first article for discussion, Article 2. And I'll read it, and then we'll have a board member make a present. We'll get a second, and then a board member who will make a presentation. You're going to be able to see it in this presentation. We'll try to keep on track here with you. So the article says, shall the Littleton School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with a warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $16,336,859. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $17,399,073, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Littleton School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. So this is recommended by the board, 5-0. So we'll entertain a motion. Second?
Second.
What that does, it opens us up to discussion. The board member who's making the presentation may come up if you'd like.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. All the board members are going to be doing some presentations on the budget. So I'd ask you just to hold your questions. If you have some specific questions, maybe you could write them down. Until we finish through this article of the budget, there's approximately 20 slides that we're going to be going through to really explain what this budget is composed of and how we got to the number that we got to. So I'm going to start off with this little budget philosophy and just give you some background information on how we arrived at where we are tonight, just to give you some information. This budget is not a reaction to a large tax increase. I know the tax increase that we're all pondering and looking at was a catalyst to do some searching and some soul searching, but this budget is a reflection more of understanding where the school district is, where we're going, and what we need to do in order to have a sustainable budget. And I think that's all of our heart's desire, is to be good stewards of what we have and also to give the best quality education that we can provide for the tax money that we raise in this town. So that's what we're trying to present tonight, is a balance between those two. It was also based around understanding that going forward, our enrollments have been decreasing. The population has been decreasing of our school-aged children, and for the next 5 or more years, it seems to be on the decrease. We do have some reliable data that we'll be showing today that we have to begin to look at that as an issue for sustainability and where we're heading. So that was also one of the big issues in our philosophy. We also wanted to look at the possibility of doing more with less. How can we economize? How can we really look at the way we're doing business? Sometimes we get so used to a pattern of doing business, it's easy just to continue as usual. So this year represented a really circumspect look to see what we're doing, why we're doing it, and can we maintain and continue to do that. So some of what you're going to see tonight is a reflection of some of those changes and some of those directions that we know we have to take in order to continue moving in that positive direction. Our goal is to continue to maintain the highest quality education while still balancing the ability of us as taxpayers to burden that. And we understand that. All of us board members are part of that community, part of the community with you. So we speak as part of this community that we're working together to try to come to the greatest solution. So I'm not going to read all of this information. You can read that yourselves. But that's our basic philosophy, is to try to balance all of these things together to make a coherent budget. Some of our priorities, these are in no order of specific priority. These are just priorities that we have in general. But our K-12 standards-based curriculum assessments and reporting and recording, incorporating technology in the classrooms, teaching and learning is a different world. It really is, even for most of us in this audience. When we went to high school and grammar school, some of our kindergartners are more tech savvy than most of us in this room, and it's just a fact of life. It's an amazing thing. So we need to gear up towards what does that look like going forward. So technology in the classroom is really an issue and a very important issue. Aligning all of our curriculum with the current assessments that are out there, and if you have any questions on the assessments that we do use, you can talk to our superintendent, and he will give you some more detailed information on the assessments that we're using now to align our curriculum properly. Supporting research-based instructional practices, ensuring students' socioeconomic needs that are being addressed. And again, we're in an environment where there are a lot of socioeconomic needs mixed into one pot, and it's very difficult. One size does not fit all. We need to be very sensitive to where we are as a community, the kids coming into the community, the kids presently in our school system. So it is a balancing act to see how do we address all these different needs and to do it in the best possible way. A few other priorities: rigorous and competitive academic experience for all of our students. We want to give our students the greatest challenges that we can within the means of our budget. And we're always looking for new ways and creative ways to do that, but that is one of our top priorities. Effective district leadership and fiscal oversight. We're going to be talking more about that this evening. 5 years facility maintenance or management planning and implementation. We do have some beautiful facilities. If you haven't toured the CTC Center, or if you haven't toured through some of the high school that's been renovated over the years, beautiful facilities. Our gymnasium is top-notch. If you've gone to some of the basketball games in some other schools, we really have a lot to be proud of at Littleton, and that's something we want to continue to do. But we do have at least one major aging facility that we'll talk about a little bit later. Lakeway has been around for a number of years, and we have to make some decisions about that school. A cycle of regular facilities maintenance. We have a great facilities team that's going through regular maintenance, so we're staying on top of these things so a problem doesn't become a crisis, and we can really be good stewards of our maintenance budgets. Orient and support for our new superintendent. We're so grateful to have Steve Niles here with us as a fixture in Littleton, owns a home here, he's a resident here, and it really is good to work with somebody who we know that wants to set some roots here. So, Steve, we appreciate your being here tonight with us. Review and refine our budget process this year is kind of an overview of that direction that we want to continue to do in years to come. Monitor student achievement and success, which is really the bottom line. If our students aren't succeeding, then we're doing something wrong, and we need to correct if we could. Some budget challenges. There are a number of challenges that we need to look at when you look at a budget that's very complicated. There's a number of outside forces that we don't have control over, some that we do, and how to balance the both of those. So one of the things we need to consider is the loss of state aid. There's a piece of our adequacy aid formula, and adequacy aid comes from the state based on enrollments and a number of other factors. And if you do have some questions about specifics, our business manager, Tom Mangles, would love to be able to talk to you more about that. Right, Tom? Absolutely. But there is a change in the stabilization grant that's part of the adequacy aid formula that is being reduced by 4% every year for the next 25 years. So over the course of 25 years, that's going to be $1.5 million not coming into outside aid to Littleton School District. So that's something we have to be planning for and understand that's not going to be there unless something miraculously changes in our legislature. More than $500,000 in new obligations. This would be reflected in the default budget, which you will see being presented later. Some of the major drivers in that $500,000 of new obligations, this is the default budget to do business, plus any new obligations that would be contractual or required by law. One would be our health insurance, an increase of $194,000. Now that may seem like a big increase, but compared to a few years ago when we had some other insurance plans, that's not as high an increase as they could have been. Our professional staff is increasing by 5.4%, and our support staff insurance is increasing by 12.9%. State retirement system continues to shift more burden to the school district. That is going up by $217,297. So the state is shifting more burden on the local districts to carry the state retirement system for our teachers. Professional staff, the second year of our 2-year negotiated agreement, in that contract there were $120,877 of contractual agreements that were added to the default budget. So when you see the default budget presented, these will be the new monies that would be added to that. And we all know about the large increase in our tax rate, our 2016 of $1.77. There were still a few other challenges. We do have some major facilities needs. Some we're addressing immediately. Some we're going to need to make some major decisions as a community what to do with down the road, and we'll make some note of that this evening. But our high school gym roof I think it was in 1989 was when that roof was installed. It's been leaking for the last couple of years. The leak has been repaired again at this point. Hopefully it's not leaking now. We need to replace that roof this year in the tune of about $100,000. We're going to talk how we're going to do that in a little bit. At Lakeway, it continues to have ongoing needs, not even addressing the issue of the school itself, but just the needs. We have a number of ventilator units in the school that are going back to the 1980s that were in there. Some of them are not working at all that need to be replaced. We've been replacing them, but we need to replace a number of them. There are now 20 that are on the list to be replaced at a tune of about $12,000 to $14,000 each when you consider the cost. These units have to be custom made because they're no longer available. The cost of those units and installation, so it does begin to add up over years. So we need to consider replacing some of those immediate need ventilators. Our technology infrastructure needs, upgrading to support 21st century learning. There are some infrastructure needs that we need to address in some of our schools that's going to require some immediate attention. So these were some of the budget challenges that we faced before we even sat down to look at the numbers, before we even figured out what the bottom line was going to be. So as we present where we've got these, where we went from here, again, just keep your questions until the very end, and then we can go back and look at different parts of the budget. So I'm going to ask Greg Cook to come up and continue on.
Good evening. So some of the budget reductions that we've had to consider there is a special ed, there's planned tuition reductions in that area. We've also looked at reducing the gifted and talented tuition, not eliminating, but doing some reduction based on past history and usage. Charter academy tuition, we're looking to reduce from 6 slots down to 4 slots. The school supplies budgets have gone through a 10% reduction at each school, and the administrative teams and staff have done a great job to try to eliminate and reduce some over budgeting in that area. We're looking at reduction in administration of 1.5 FTEs. Our full-time employees. We're looking at, we've reduced the instructional coach positions. That was a difficult decision on the board's part. We are looking at reducing SAU administrative support by 0.4 FTE. They're also looking at reducing support staff reductions of 4 support staff reductions in the district. We've also made cuts to the board and superintendent legal and consulting expenses, and the reduction of the teacher mentoring program. There's also making reductions of 4 programs at the high school and middle school. There'll be a reduction in the French program, a reduction in the ESOL program, which is the English for Speakers of Other Languages, a reduction in the CTC and teacher education, and another reduction in the CTC program for manufacturing. These programs have not been eliminated, but staffing will be adjusted and restructured to reflect student enrollment and needs. So what does it all mean? It means a reduction of more than $600,000 from the current year's budget. The reductions reflect a loss of students over time. And Jim spoke of the declining enrollment. It means maintaining programs by better utilizing personnel. And it means all areas of the budget, administrative, teaching, support staff, are being affected. I'd now like to invite Leslie Robbins up for the operating budget.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for being here tonight. The proposed 2017-18 budget represents a 3.5% decrease from our current year's budget. If, and this is a big if, the town's assessed valuation remains the same, the potential, sorry, am I being too loud?
No.
Okay.
Adjust it.
Thank you. If the town's assessed valuation remains the same, the potential tax rate impact would be a decrease of 83 cents per thousand. If. Keep in mind that the final tax rate will be set in late 2017, and it depends on a number of factors, including those listed on the slide. I'd like to touch upon several areas of the decreases and increases in the proposed budget. Beginning with 1100, regular education, we're seeing a decrease of $156,000. This regular education category includes two of the reductions that Greg mentioned: French and English for speakers of other languages, also known as ESOL. These are two full-time positions which are being reduced to part-time. French will continue to be offered at the high school level, including French 1, French 2, and French 3. The introductory French quarter-length middle school courses might continue to be offered. It will depend on the enrollment numbers in the French classes at the high school. ESOL will still be taught to students who need to improve their English skills in grades kindergarten through 12. The very small ESOL class sizes at the secondary level will be increasing next year based upon this change. So they're quite small. Also in the 1100 regular education budget, textbook expenditures are down about $28,000, and this is because most of that decrease is because there isn't a significant K-6 curriculum purchase planned for Lakeway. I'd like to talk about the 1300 category. That's an accounting function code. Vocational education, which has a decrease of about $100,000. Vocational education refers to the courses taught at the Hugh Gallen Career and Technical Center, and this category also includes two personnel reductions. Teacher education, currently a full-time position, is being reduced to part-time. The teacher education classes, levels 1 and levels 2, will continue to be offered to Littleton students and sending district students. We will still offer that program. The Child Development 1 and 2 courses currently listed in the LHS Program of Studies might be offered next year. It will depend on student interest. This year, Child Development 1 was taught. Child Development 2 is not. My understanding is no one has registered for it. So, manufacturing is seeing a reduction as well. While the district remains very committed to the development of this new program, next year will be one of restructuring. Mr. Smith, the CTC director, is working diligently to explore different ways to provide and develop these course offerings through partnerships within our community, including the local manufacturing industry, as well as the community college. I just want to touch on 1400 co-curricular, which sees a decrease over $9,000. And I want to assure everyone that this proposed budget does not change the co-curricular program offerings. The decrease that we're showing is because the 1400 budget more closely reflects what we have been spending on co-curriculars. So there is no change to those programs. Moving to the 2200, instructional staff support and educational media services. This is our biggest decrease, over $245,000. Budget to budget, this decrease reflects a very significant change, the elimination of the instructional coaching positions. These two positions focus on improving teacher instruction in our schools. The 7 to 12 instructional coach position was not filled this year because the person transitioned to a new role in the district. The Lakeway instructional coach position is integrated into the very fabric of the school, a solid resource which teachers may utilize to improve their craft. This position has assisted with curriculum alignment and many other important instructional improvement pieces. This is a big change. Moving forward, the building principals will take on the role of instructional leadership with support from Dr. Nilas. Finally, let's see, where am I? I want to touch on school administration. We're seeing a decrease of $61,450 in this category. Dr. Nilas is recommending the restructuring of the administrative team for the coming year, which will result in the reduction of one full-time position. And on this slide, I just want to touch on function 5100, debt service. We're seeing a decrease of over $26,000. Our district continues to pay down the debt for two of our major projects, the high school renovation project and the CTC middle school project. I want to thank voters for their past support for these excellent projects, which really has left us in a very solid situation for these facilities for our students and our staff to work in. So at the secondary level, we're in very good shape with our facilities, and I really thank the Littleton voters for making that move. It's excellent. I want to let you know that repayment on the high school renovation will be complete in 2022. And by 2027, we will also have finished paying off the middle school and CTC renovation. Looking at this pie chart, which is a really great picture to kind of understand our whole budget, it illustrates what we all know very well. Schools are people-driven organizations. In this proposed budget, 78% of expenditures are driven by people, the most critical piece of delivering high-quality education to Littleton's children. You see that 6% of expenditures are for debt and other costs. Purchase services represents 10% of expenditures and includes expenses like transportation. And finally, about 6% of expenditures are projected for supplies and equipment. Thank you, and I will ask Millie Nelson now to come up.
Good evening. I'm going to talk about the enrollment with some statistical figures here. Can somebody change the slides here? Oh, it's right here?
I'll do it from my seat.
Yay, thanks. Lakeway Elementary School, this is as current as we can get. This changes. Has 366 students, and Daisy Bronson Middle School, 110, and Littleton High School, 234, totaling 710 students. The special program enrollment, Hugh Gallen Career and Technical Center has 213 students, in-district students, 106, out-of-district students, 107. Special education, 122, and Littleton Academy is 26 students. The next slide is from NASDAQ, and it's the first slide goes from PK-12 and 212, and it's 2006 to 2016. As you can see, it continues to decline, going from 902 to 710. And that's one of our concerns and one of the things that drive our budget considerations. The next slide is 2016 to 2026. And you'll notice that it's leveling off, and it's staying pretty much the same as we go through it. The other slide is, if you notice, in 2020, is that I don't have the good slide, but it's, can I see yours there? don't have the colored one. The yellow is what? Yeah, overall. And then the blue is Lakeway Elementary School, and Daisy Bronson Middle is the red. And you can see there that chart is showing increase or decline. My chart is blank on my page, so that's not very helpful. Personnel. We have full-time employees in 2016-17 of 163. Projected for 2017 to 18 is 154. Part-time employees, we have 12 currently, and we're projecting 10. And then the total employees for 2016-17 year is 175. We're projecting it to go to 164. Year-round employees, 41, going to 38. School year employees, 134, going to 126. The overall total, as you can see, it's currently 175, and we're projecting to go to 164. Thank you.
Okay, the final two pieces that we want to present before we open the floor for questions or comments. How we pay for all this. This is estimated revenue. As you can see from the pie chart there, local taxation is the lion's share of where the money comes from, about 60%. $9.8 million will come from local taxation. State adequacy aid and state aid, about $3.9 million. And then the smaller pieces, federal grants and federal money mixed in there. So that's an indication of where the revenue is. At this point, our latest projections is that the revenue is going to be up about $67,000. Again, revenue is a moving target, so we don't want to continue to build what we don't know for sure yet. And a lot of these things are not finalized until much later in the year. But that's where we are at the moment. If this budget were to pass as it is, that would be where the monies would come from. Final slide I want to present before we open up for questions would be the actual default budget. Should the budget that we presented to you this evening up to this point not pass, the default budget would then come into play. The total appropriations for 2016-2017 were a little over $17 million. If we add in the approximately $500,000 worth of new obligations and subtract out the bond interest that we're not going to be paying this year because we have less debt to pay on, and transfers from the 2015-16 revenue will come to about $17,400,000 would be the default budget. So should the budget that we're presenting tonight not pass, this would be the default budget. And if you need the details on that default budget, again, we have this information available at the SAU office. So at this time, we'd like to open up for any questions or comments on the budget as we presented up to this point. We do have a few warrant articles that we'll be presenting in just a few moments, but we'd like to just consolidate it to this so we can keep our discussion focused on just this particular article. So I'd like to open up at this point for any questions. If you'd like to ask a question, you can line up behind the microphone and state your name.
Hi, my name's Ralph Hodgman, and I'm a taxpayer here in town. First of all, I've been attending quite a few of the board meetings ever since I found out about the $2.59 tax increase. I want to hand it to you guys. You've done a great job coming back with this budget. 83 cents per thousand back to the taxpayers is very impressive. If the town deliberative session will give us 2/3 of that, I'll be a very happy taxpayer at this point. But I do want to go back to a few of the slides you have. One of them said that the large increase in the 2016 tax rate of $1.77. Okay, I just want to let everyone know that's the school portion only.
Correct.
Between the school and the town, that tax rate we got hit with in November, December, unexpectedly was $2.59 per thousand. That's a huge increase that no one was expecting. Okay, so there's a lot of taxpayers in town that are on what do you call, we're Social Security, we're retired, we get no increases, we get a 0.3% increase per year. We're having trouble meeting this new tax rate. So we're completely looking for some real strong reductions between the school and the town. I think the school has come up with a good plan. I do want to find out, though, where you're talking about an 83-cent tax rate reduction. That's strictly on the proposed budget. When we get into the other amendments a little bit later, what is the overall tax rate reduction if all of the amendments passed? Does anyone have that as of now? The warrant articles. If all the warrant articles pass, what is the overall tax reduction to the town?
The articles on capital reserve funds
And the one on the Lakeway Elementary School?
are from fund balance. So that's out of this year's budget money. If there's any left over, to fund those.
Okay.
And the Lakeway article would be 15 cents. Roughly.
For what?
15-cent increase.
For the warrant articles on here, for that $100,000 they're asking for Lakeway Elementary, we're only looking at a 15-cent reduction?
I will calculate that for you.
Okay. On the Charter Academy, you said you're reducing from 6 slots to 4 slots. What does a slot mean in the Charter Academy?
That's the number of students that we're allowed to enroll in the academy. What we tell them up front that we're likely to purchase. It's a student.
Okay, okay. So the Charter Academy is still sitting in the old building over here, the old building that taxpayers kind of told everybody to get out of a few years ago.
That's
So
not
the academy is still sitting in that
That's not
building.
the Charter Academy is at the old Littleton Hospital. The Littleton Academy is the one that's over in the middle
That's
school.
what I'm talking about.
Well, that's different. That's
Okay,
not,
but
that's
isn't
not
that,
what
isn't that
this
part of the
is.
school district?
Yes, but it's not that particular item in the.
So the
slide
Littleton
presentation.
Academy is all part of the budget then?
It's all part of the budget.
Okay. I just want to make a point, though, that that building was supposed to be emptied out a couple of years ago by all the taxpayers. We recommended getting out of it, closing it down. We put a lot of money in this building to move that in, and it's still being used by the academy for 26 students. Why can't these 26 students attend somewhere with the rest of the students in this school here? Why does the academy, the Littleton Academy, have to be separate from the high school? Is there a reason?
I'd ask Dr. Niles or Kelly Nolan, if you want to address that, why the academy building is necessary for certain students.
Yeah, I think just to first, I think that's certainly been at least a bit of the discussion. We haven't gone far with that this time around. We do use the facility or the gym part of the facility, which we've talked about before. There's a possibility maybe of isolating that in the future. And the community, of course, uses the gym facility as well. That's something I think we'll need to look at going forward. And it's certainly something we have discussed. As far as the programming needs of the students, I'll let Kelly speak to that a little bit, is how that building fits into that.
So the Littleton Academy is a state-approved special education program, for students with emotional disabilities. It used to be housed where the SAU is currently, and there were some issues with that building as well. So there were some renovations made to the floor that the Littleton Academy occupies at the old Daisy Bronson building in order to bring it up to code to meet the number, to meet the needs for such a small number of students. So these students might typically be placed out of district if we did not have this program to support their needs.
Okay, so we're maintaining that big, huge building for 26 students that I still haven't heard why they can't be incorporated into the high school.
due to the nature of their disabilities and their needs, it's best to have an alternate setting for them.
Okay, so we're still paying cleaning, lights, heat, electricity. We're paying for the maintenance of that building. You said you had to have part of it renovated after the taxpayer said, let's close it down. You still put money into renovating it. And we're going to continue putting money into it as long as we got students in there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know.
I
don't know that it was
as
ever
a
going to be
taxpayer-
completely closed, but if you didn't have that building for those students and they had to be tuitioned out somewhere, you'd be spending $50,000 or more per student to place them in another setting.
I just still don't hear why they can't be incorporated somewhere into the high school, middle school building. I guess that's my point. My point as a taxpayer is we're paying for a lot of money. We're paying money for this building that really holds 26 people for that shouldn't even be used at this point. I have a
board can
strong
speak to
feeling as
the
a taxpayer
history
against
on that.
using that building.
Yeah.
You know, Ralph, thanks for your question. I don't recall, and I've lived here for about 10 or 11 years here, the town voting to close that building in full. We certainly moved the middle school, which was housed there, and that wasn't going to work in terms of the egress. And that middle school was built on top of the new CTC. So I just want to state that, because you've said that a couple times.
But at the deliberative meeting that didn't close the school, it was told by us that the school district would not be using that building. That's exactly the words that we used at the deliberative session.
I wasn't on the board at the time, and
Okay.
I don't have that information. I do want to just comment a little bit on Kelly's comments, because we have talked about this, and based upon the students' needs who are in the Littleton Academy, it works the best to have them be in a separate building, and this is a building that we happen to have that actually allows them to go back and forth and participate in some classes at the high school sometimes, and then go back to the setting that works the best. And I also want to point out that our athletic programs are definitely still using the gymnasium in that building, so that's part of it. It's also used by the community. Parks and Recreation, as you know, ran into a problem with their building at the park, which offers the summer camps and summer care for students while school is out. And it's really fortunate we have that building too for Parks and Recreation to use. So it is being utilized quite a bit by the Littleton community. There's a Parks and Recreation basketball league that plays there twice a week. So I hear your concerns, but at this point the building is in use, and until our main goal is to figure out an alternative for Lakeway at this point, which probably would accommodate some of the gymnasium issues moving forward.
Okay.
So I hope that
All right.
answers a little bit of the questions.
Thank you.
But really, what I understand from Kelly is that having the schools separate really works well for those students making progress, which is what we're all about here.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. And then one last question. With this teacher reductions that you're talking about, the staff reductions, what will be the teacher-to-student ratio that will be remaining? Because right now you're at 1 to 9, with a state average at 1 to 12. What will your ratio still be with these reductions in personnel?
It raises it. Obviously, there's a higher ratio, not quite 1 to 10.
You don't have a number?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Next.
Mary Edick. Can you hear me? No.
Just raise that up a little bit, Mary. Is it on?
No.
Just tap it. It is not. So maybe somebody can help with that. There's a little button on the back, I think, on the back end. That is on this one anyway.
Where'd you find it?
On the bottom of it?
Is it? Hello? No?
It's right here. It's on now.
Here comes the coach.
One, two, one.
It's on now? Speak up. Put my lips on it, right, like I'm singing. Put my lips right on it, huh? No?
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay. Mary Edick.
Yeah, that's good.
Few questions. On the budget overview, there were a number of things that weren't mentioned, and I'd just like to hear why the student support services increased 32,000.
You guys hear Mary all right?
You can hear me, or is it working or not?
Get a little closer. Got to get a little closer.
Pretend I'm singing. Everybody go home. Okay, the $32,000 increase on the student support services.
Absolutely. That represents the increase in salary, the increase in healthcare, and the increase in retirement benefits for the people in that category, which would include student support services, Tom, that's speech, thank you, the nurse, guidance, those areas, Mary, does that help?
Sure, but why, if you're decreasing faculty teaching French, why are you increasing that support services?
We're not increasing the support services, we're employing the same number of people, for that category, but that's the increase in their salary,
Okay.
benefits, and retirement.
Okay. There were several others down in the operation and maintenance and the transportation, the technology, and the food services. Those you didn't mention increases and a decrease.
Do you think we could get that slide pulled up again, maybe? It's this one, the budget overview. Okay, we'll start with 2,600 operations.
23,000. 23,000.
Oh, you wanna start with 23?
23,500. Okay. Where?
So, okay.
Oh, okay, good enough.
2,600, this
Right.
covers the operations and maintenance
Right.
of our buildings, including the custodial staff. Things that are happening within this budget that you can see on page 5 of this handout.
Okay.
We have increased, if you're comparing budget to budget, a 0.5 custodian to a full-time custodian, so there is an increase there. We've had an increase in what we have to pay for health insurance for the custodians, as well as retirement benefits. We have decreased in this category by about $27,000 what we'll be spending on building repairs. And we have also decreased by about $27,000 what we'll be doing with security projects within this operating budget. So those are some of the decreases. We're also spending less on equipment, about $14,000 less on equipment. What was the other?
Oh, the transportation, the technology, and the food service. You didn't mention all of those.
Okay, transportation is seeing a slight increase. Transportation is our busing, and we have a multi-year contract, and that's what the increase would be for this year. So that would be $2,575. The technology budget has an increase of $13,000. Part of that is raises and benefits and retirement costs that we incur for employing the 2 people in technology. We're decreasing our contracted services. You can see this on page 6 in the details of this area. we've decreased on equipment as well, $55,000, $56,000 for technology in this budget. Food service, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Mangles.
The food service reflects some of the changes that we've had. We went to a contract with Fitzvo as a contracted service, and it's now all their employees. We're looking at the budget they prepared for us for this year and looking for some more improvements next year. So although we're not seeing some of the improvements in revenue that we had planned, we are seeing some improvements in the programs and some reductions in costs.
While you're there, could I ask how many, in changing those food services, how many jobs were lost here in the food service?
None of them are our employees now. I believe the total number of people are still the same, though. In fact, there might even be one more, but I don't.
So
know
they
the
hired the people who were working here?
Those people who were still working here who chose to go with Fitzvo were offered employment.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Some have come and some have gone.
Okay.
But yes, the board did honor their commitment to the folks for the first year of the agreement. Those who stayed in our were district employees. Now with the second year, everyone belongs to Fitzvo. Some have stayed and some have not.
Good, thank you. Okay, more questions? Can I don't know, I'll ask. And on the 1100, the regular education, field trips went up from, for the 16-17 budget was 7,750, and it went up to 28,750, the increase. And what are the field trips?
So you're seeing a large increase in that area for field trips. I was going to crack a joke here, but I guess I won't. Pretty serious night. You're seeing that because we've been budgeting the field trips for Lakeway Elementary. Each grade takes a field trip with the exception of kindergarten. I think they maybe do a walking field trip. And we moved the field trips that were sort of embedded in transportation into this line for field trips in regular education. Some of the field trips include the State House for students. We have a field trip in the elementary school where they go and to the Appalachian Mountain Club, and they get out into the White Mountains and have an opportunity to experience that. And they have an overnight, which is really wonderful. We have a great team of teachers who have brought that forward for our students. So if that answers some of your questions.
I just have one related to that. When you have a grade go on a field trip, is every student in that grade given the opportunity to go? Do they have to pay anything? Is anyone excluded for any reason?
Not to the best of my ability,
Okay.
not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
That's why.
She's shaking her head no.
Okay.
Good. That's good to
That's
know.
why
That's good.
they're in the budget.
Right.
And so
Good.
the teachers organize them, they plan them, they research the costs, and they present them in their budgets. Right now, they're planned for next year already.
Right, good, okay. One other one. How many gifted and talented students are in 1270? How many are we talking about?
There's not a specific number of students in those programs. There are support programs for primarily for high school students, but for other people who are looking for additional opportunities beyond what we're offering here. So it's not a particular class. It's not like the alternative program in the academy where there are specific students. The gifted and talented is pretty much based on request and what the needs of the student are beyond what we're able to provide.
So they are sent they are
Some of them go to
given
St.
classes
Paul's, for
elsewhere?
example, okay, and summer programs and things like that.
But on an average, how many students are we talking about? 10?
A couple a year.
2 a year. Okay, thank you. On the last page, 2720, bus driver, and that says single bus driver. And then on next is the transportation. What is this? I keep moving, sorry. One bus driver, $49,000.
We have one bus driver who was a district employee, primarily in special ed, whereas our other transportation is contracted through W.W. Berry. The reduction that you're seeing in transportation on the last line, I believe it is, under transportation, is some of the change in field trips that were just discussed. They've moved from transportation up to the field trip lines in the 1100s.
Okay, thank you
You're
very much.
Good. Yes.
Ron LaHoot. First, I want to thank the school board for all the hard work they do. It's very much appreciated. Just maybe a legal question or a question on if the board can elaborate more on how the administration is going to be impacted by the cuts, and are we as taxpayers at all privy to any more details about faculty cuts in order to make to vote on that particular item? You couldn't hear me? Is this not working?
Go ahead and repeat the question.
The question was whether the board is obligated to share any more details about how the administrative cuts are going to impact us, and if they can also share any information about faculty cuts.
Okay.
Or the rationale behind it.
Sure. I think, as we said as we went down this road, when you start reducing the budget by the magnitude that we are, all areas are affected. Administration, support staff, teaching staff, so classroom supplies. So in terms of why, the cuts were spread out, at least among those different areas. In terms of specifics on the administrative reorganization, those decisions haven't been made. We've certainly discussed it, but those decisions at this point have not been made. And once they are, of course, they'll be public. Ron, I think the other question was the teaching. I think we've identified the programs that are affected by reductions at this point.
So we'll have more information on the administrative cuts before we vote on the warrant article?
Before the election?
Yeah.
I would anticipate by then, yes, there'll be some clarity with that, because that's, a month away, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I hope so, okay.
Oh, okay, next.
Still high.
Yeah.
Allison Bolt. I know how hard it is to cut staff. There's small
You
town.
have to get really close to it, isn't it?
Is that close enough? I know how hard it is to cut staff because you're a small town here and we know people, and I know that's a very difficult thing. I also know that the school board has been looking for years at class sizes and trying to do some reorganizing, so I understand all of that. However, I also know that when cuts come, the first things to get cut are arts and languages. Now, I also understand you have to have enrollment, but we have a unique thing here. I mean, when you have a scientist or an engineer who can teach math, that's a real blessing to a school district. We lost a teacher years ago, Mr. Church, I believe, who was super qualified, and that was a hard hit. And I believe the same thing about Mrs. Healy. It's so unusual to have a native speaker teaching French in a small town like this. And it's a gift. And this is also a person, based on my knowledge of her, who's gone well above and beyond, doing things like taking children from this area to France with her, an opportunity they might never have had were it not for her. Now, I would hope and encourage you to think about the fact we do live 69 miles from Canada. There are all kinds of opportunities here. We see in town, Nous parlons français, and a lot of these stores, there are job opportunities related to this. It seems to me that instead of cutting this teacher, what you should be doing is promoting the program. Perhaps instead of making her half-time, which would do a job on her benefits and perhaps cause her to go elsewhere, what you should look at is trying to seed the program by having her teach class maybe over at Lakeway, because the way you build the program is to gin up interest in it early on. Now, I understand that a lot of people take Spanish because, well, with what's going on in the country, that's logical. But where we are, you have Canada right there, the opportunity to go across the border, go for an hour's drive and actually speak the language you're learning from a native speaker. A person who is actually French can teach you the culture. She can teach you the accent. She can teach you the nuances of the language. To me, losing Mrs. Healy would be a huge loss. And I would encourage you together to come up with some creative ways, even if it's to help her get double-certed so she can stay full-time. Because I don't think this is an asset this district should, in a cavalier way, lose.
Okay, anyone else? Yeah, okay.
Hello, my name's Kevin McShane. I just have a couple questions for the board.
You just do have to maybe raise that up a little bit.
That's
for you.
got, my voice is pretty loud, and that's,
Okay.
how close do I have to be here?
Okay.
That close
good.
enough?
Yeah.
Okay. My question is, have you thought about the economic ramifications of the cuts to the school, to the community? I'm looking at the 0.86 on my tax rate. You're going to save me $150. In the last 10 years I've been here, I moved here 10 years ago, bought a house here. My house value has dropped $30,000. So I'm not really sure where the benefit is to saving $150. Part of the deal is this community is getting better in so many ways, but the school is not viewed as well as it could be. I'm not saying that it's not a great school. I'm saying that this could be viewed poorly by people looking to move here, which might cost me more than $150. Just looking at that, and I really like, when we don't put it in terms of dollar amounts, it just doesn't make much sense. We got about 1,000 houses in district, right? Am I kind of about right? Yeah? About 1,000 homes? More? Less? 4,000-ish people, houses of 4, most of the people, more like 5,000-ish people, 6,000-ish people, lots of them renters. Yeah. So about 1,000 homes, $150 a piece. Businesses are picking up any difference in this tax increase, right? So for about $150 a person, you're talking about 12 jobs, like good paying jobs in the community that are gone. People spending money in the community that are gone. Kids that might be in the community because of those families. Just the big picture thing. That's all. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, in the back. Well, go ahead.
Kim DeLutis. I think we've heard some great speakers here, and we all care about.
If you could.
What the other people have said, I think hits the nail on the head. But I think the school board has done a great job in being very creative and trying to appease the taxpayers. But I agree that we also need to look at the big picture, and I'd like to hear from the principals about how these cuts will affect them. And I think there were 4 paras, if I'm correct, that are going to be cut. And it's tough enough working with kids, let alone, having to lose a para. So I'd really like to hear more about how that's going to affect them, because that'll affect all the kids in the class learning.
So Joanne and Crystal, Al, you want to speak to these? Why don't you, Crystal, why don't you come on up?
Yeah. The Cut at Lakeway is the instructional coach, and currently that position works with student data and really spends the time to make sure that we're addressing all of our students' needs. We know where they are academically, what we can do to improve that. This person goes to every PLC meeting and meets with teachers, coordinates curriculum K through 6 right now at Lakeway, and is also working with the middle school staff as well. It's a very important position that will have to be absorbed elsewhere. We have somebody right now that's very experienced and contributes to teacher education as well, supporting teachers in the classroom, and helping just in general keep the curriculum K through 6 aligned.
And what is that dollar amount? How would that affect the budget?
Okay, the follow-up question, yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering.
Yeah, as far as the support positions, we have paraprofessionals that support special ed students. We also have positions that support regular ed students, other support personnel, and again, the thing about projecting these staffings to start with is they're student driven, based on the needs of students. But I think as we put this budget together, we've had to look at all areas, and we have to find ways to maximize what we have. Typically, we'll have some turnover among the paraprofessional staff, and so we're looking that there'll be some attrition that will come into play here, so that people won't necessarily, existing employees, lose their jobs. That's what we definitely want to see happen.
That'll happen over the next year?
That will happen probably as we finish this year.
Okay.
There's usually some change, some turnover, and I think the thing that is important to remember about everything we've talked about tonight is that you have to start somewhere with a budget, and we start in August, September, and then we start moving toward this moment when we have the hearings, and finally the moment when the budget's voted on. But there's still many things that can happen. People can retire, people can leave, people can relocate. Our student population can change. It's fluid from day to day, literally. It's fluid, and it does have effect on personnel. So I think at this point we do the best that we can, given the information that we have, but that can and will change. So that's part of the trick. I think when we start talking about specifics, what will it actually look like, we don't know. We have to give everybody the best information that we have, but we don't know exactly.
I guess that's what I find so concerning, because
Yep.
when you cut, a position, and especially I agree with Allison about making French part-time.
Right.
I think that should definitely stay full-time. And it's imperative that it would be great if it could be taught at the elementary level. That's when kids learn the most, pick up a language most easily. And yes, I agree, Montreal is, 2.5 hours away, and my kids can converse in French, and it's not because I've taught them French, it's because Cecile Healy has taught them
Yep.
French. And we have relatives in Montreal, but her program is great. We are very lucky to have it. So yeah, I'm concerned about the paras and making it much tougher for the teachers. I'm also concerned about what positions will be cut, and I'm concerned that the instructional coach is something that we're definitely, I got a sense that it was pretty important. So, and to burden the principal and you with more of that, I think would be detracting.
Well, and I think again, to one thing, we try to emphasize is that some of the things that were done through that program, we still need to support instruction. We still need to give teachers ongoing training. Part of, I'll be very honest, part of what we're grappling with right now, and actually a group is going to meet tomorrow, 27 teachers. We're going to start talking about what it is we want for the future of this district. What's important? What instructional approaches are important to us? What we need to come to some definite conclusion on the most fundamental question of all, and that's what students should know and when should they know it. Development of the curriculum. So there's many things in play here, and so the issue of identifying research-based effective instructional strategies will not go away. We have to find other ways to deliver that. Maybe we involve many teachers and get more teachers, trained in best practices, and also get more teachers trained in some of the things we were asking the instructional coach to do. But that certainly doesn't minimize the work that they did over the past few years and the good work that they did.
Okay, you good with this? Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Tom Alt. Bonsoir, mes amis, for my French friends.
Tom, you can adjust that up if.
Am I there?
There you go.
Okay. My compliments to the people who have asked good questions tonight, and my compliments to the board. I've served on a few boards, not a school board, but I know that it's challenging to work within the parameters that they set you in and still try to make anybody happy. My empathy to the first speaker, who represents a lot of taxpayers in this town. And as I look around the room, I congratulate all the teachers for showing up to support their budget. And since the school budget is such a huge piece of the town tax pie, I always wonder why most of the townspeople are home, maybe watching this on Channel 2. Because this is the big bite, not fighting over a small thing at the town budget. So mostly I just have some comments. Education changes, like everything else, or the idea of how to educate people. The philosophy should still be the same. We're trying to put a child out into the world who can support himself and be a credit to his community. And as the state and the feds continue to put down mandates and the Department of Education comes up with new so-called creative ideas, this gets fuzzy. But the product should still be what counts. I hear the total number of students in town, 710, and I hear the total number of school employees, 163. And Mrs. Ross, my third grade teacher, taught me long division, if anybody remembers that term. I come out with 4.3 students per school employee. That sounds like a lot to me. A lot. Not very many students for each employee. Again, I understand education is changing. Again, I also understand that what counts is the product. So whether we're getting there with the good product or not is up to you to decide. Running the school is like running a budget or a business. You got a budget to work within. You got employees. You hire good ones, you hope. You offer them conditions that you hope will keep them if they're good, and have a doorway to exit them if they aren't good. If you look at the salaries and the benefits and taxes, you'll realize that working within a unionized situation, benefit package is very good for public employees. And if all you've ever been is a public employee, you may not appreciate that. But I'm going to tell you, for instance, under regular education, we're spending $3 million for salaries, and we're spending $1.8 million on top of that for benefits and taxes. So that's another 60% of the wages that goes to these people. So just as an example, if their salary was $32,000, their benefits are another $18,000 for a total of $50,000. So having been an employee in my life, I want to make sure I'm getting my money's worth for that. And I think the school board does a good job doing that, but I think it's good to keep it in front of ourselves at all times. Because it gets to some point where with 710 students and a budget of just over $1,700,000, that comes out to $23,000 per student. I know college costs a lot, but that's high school. And people need to live in this town. People need to be able to have a home and pay the taxes. And yeah, I'm an old guff up here, and the other fellow was an old guff, and like the feds decided that, oh, the cost of living went up 0.3%. And meanwhile, we're handing out raises at a whole lot more than that, which may be justified, that's fine. But I'm just saying we need to keep all this in mind. And part of the reason the town isn't here tonight is because they just figured that, what's the use? It's going to happen anyways. But I think I would encourage not just this school board, but all school boards. I understand the pressure you're under. You're trying to keep yourselves up with another school district so another teacher doesn't go. But a good teacher is going to be a good teacher, and he's going to stay for you. And we talk about instructional coaches. Well, my father was my instructional coach. And I don't know, I'm up here speaking. I'm not sure if I'm making a fool of myself or not, but that's where I got my instructions. So I'll just leave it with one more thing, which I think applies to teachers and students and everybody, really. It's about enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is the mother of all endeavor. Nothing worthwhile was ever accomplished without it. Thank you.
Ron, back to you. Were you satisfied with the answers you got to your question? You kind of were asking about legal ramifications or other ramifications.
No, it was just that there's not a lot of clarity to the administrative cuts, and before we...
You want to finish that? I wasn't sure you were satisfied with it.
Yeah, perhaps we could hear from the high school on how the administrative, well, they're not even aware of what the administrative changes are they?
That was my question previously.
Yeah.
That wasn't there. Okay, I wasn't sure who it was. Yeah. I thought there was a question that wasn't answered. So.
No.
And you want to hear from?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Mrs. Melanson about how the potential administrative cuts will impact.
Okay.
I don't think the administrative cuts have been decided yet. So okay. I can't answer that to you. I can't answer that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Ron, I will.
I just want to answer the other question about our French cut. We have a very diverse student body here at Littleton High School. We are lucky to offer 2 French and 2 foreign language, world language courses. And with only offering 1, I'm just afraid that those folks that might be interested in French for, so they can make their decisions, won't take a foreign language.
Yeah, one thing in the administrative cuts, there is, it's actually 1.5, because the other other part of the administrative cuts are coming out of buildings and grounds. We have employed for part of the year a part-time buildings and grounds director, and that individual had to leave the district, and we are not filling that position. So I can give some clarity on that. I think that again, I mean, to be very blunt, answering the question about the administrative positions is that the one of those positions is eliminated. That decision and that conversation must happen, obviously, with the individual long before it's shared publicly. That's just the way it has to be. And I'm sorry the timing of this can't be better, but certainly I think I would encourage anybody who wants to come see me, make an appointment. If I'm there, you don't need an appointment. I'll make time for you. If you want to bounce off ideas or share with me your perspective on that or any other issue with the school, do so. I'm there. If I'm not there, Patty will find me, unless I left my cell phone at Lakeway like I did the other day. But most of the time I can be tracked down. I'll certainly make time for anybody. Okay.
Okay, Ron? Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Drew Mablay, and I just wanted to point out a contradiction that I kind of see within the presentation, and I just wanted to explain to everyone in the room how I feel on the topic. So on pages, it's really hard to see, but 4 and 5, it's really the second page of your pamphlet. The budget philosophy, the philosophy reads, to provide a high quality and effective education for the students of Littleton while responsibly managing resources by balancing the needs of students with what the community can afford. Okay. In the priorities, the very next slide, it talks about K through 12 standards-based curriculum, assessment, reporting, and recording. It talks about aligning curriculum with assessments, the assessments that we use to measure whether we're successful or not with our education of our students. It talks about supporting research-based instructional practices. And part of this is using the data from those assessments to decide what we need to do differently and use research-based assessments, or I'm sorry, research-based interventions to deliver for our kids so that we have the highest chances of success. We're not just throwing darts at a board, we're choosing things that are proven to work, right? And then it says ensuring students' socio-emotional needs are addressed. And the contradiction I see here is that we're talking about getting rid of a position called the instructional coach. And I'm not sure if everyone in the room understands what the instructional coach does, but I do want to talk about what they do right now because I think they're a very important piece of our community in our schools. If we want to do more with less, I really do believe that we need someone who is very knowledgeable on the data, on the trends, on what's going on the research-based practices and interventions, and they have a really solid idea of what our students, where they were a few years ago, where they are now, and what are the current evidence-based interventions that we can deliver to be the most successful, to do more with less, right? So the instructional coach at the elementary level, she's really the key holder for all of this data. She collects it all, looks at it all, helps to align the curriculum among the grades, like Crystal said, and she's one of the most knowledgeable people in that school, I believe, for evidence-based programs that we use at Lakeway. So all of the programs that we're using in our special education and in our what we call Tier 2 interventions, she's very, very familiar with all of them and how they work and for what students they work and what they don't, what students they usually don't work for. She's very knowledgeable on socio-emotional evidence-based interventions and practices, and she advocates for them and takes it part when we need her. And so I'm just going back to the philosophy, and if we want to do more with less, we want to provide high quality and effective education for the students of Littleton while responsibly managing resources by balancing the needs of students with what the community can afford. I really don't think our community can afford to lose this position. And so I just wanted to put that out there so that people better understand what the role of this instructional coach is at the elementary level. She is the key holder to all this data, and she is also the person who really truly understands all of these interventions that we're using and matches the data trends to what we're going to do in the future. And I really think that she is like a huge asset to our community here. So.
Okay, next.
Steve Kelly. Just one point I wanted to make. The Budget Committee has been obviously involved with both the town and the school and, you know, trying to develop the budgets this fall and some of the challenges that are
Steve, all right?
and some of the challenges that are more pressing this year just because of what happened last year with regards to the tax rate. One element that we've been talking about for many years, and when Allison served on the school board, she and I had several conversations about this, and it probably relates particularly to the French program. You know, we have a great collaborative effort with area schools on our vocational program. We are not the only school system that's being faced with these issues with regards to languages, maybe in particular, but also arts and other things. And we've been recommending for a long time that our school personnel try to approach the various area schools, obviously being Lisbon, Profile, and White Mountain Regional, to either combine classes or share staff. I don't know what discussion has been had with regards to the French teacher, but as Allison expressed, I mean, we have a very unique situation with our French teacher who is very, very capable and offers more than, you know, than a English speaker who's been educated in French, if you would. You know, that's the type of person that you think that any school would want to have. You know, the possibility of being able to have that employee shared amongst Littleton and Profile and Lisbon, for example. I don't know the particulars of their situation, but those are the types of things that as we're facing these new challenges that we need to be looking at. You know, sometime I'm not sure whether our personnel have pursued that vigorously. I think that the current board and staff is much more in tune to that. You know, sometimes, you know, their words have been, you know, fallen on deaf ears in other school districts, but eventually those school districts are going to wake up to these issues too and realize that, you know, we can't continue to do same things the same old way that we always have. And when you have great assets like this in particular, you know, that's something that you need to go out and certainly try to sell. I mean, you know, Allison's point about, you know, we've been missing the boat on teaching foreign languages, that we think we're going to start teaching it in you know, junior high or high school when we should be teaching it in first grade. But that's a broader subject to be discussed. But any of these issues that we have, whether it's in terms of advanced math or languages or sciences or whatever else, you know, we have 4 area high schools that are almost within a stone's throw of each other, and that's probably where the greatest solution lies, either in sharing staff or creating common classrooms. I won't bore everybody with this story, but several years ago when my youngest daughter was graduating from Profile, their French 4 class had 4 students in it, and you know, and one of those students who was a skier left every year to go to Burke Mountain Academy at the end of the first semester. Imagine being in a French 4 class with only 3 students and you didn't do your homework. So anyway, but those are the kind of things that we as a society need to pursue, because there are answers out there and they can be had, but obviously it's going to require some collaborations and some hard work and some changing of some attitudes. I mean, no town likes to lose their school, but ultimately they're going to be facing the same issues we are, and there are solutions, but they need to be worked at. Thank you.
Okay, you folks ready for the question? Basically, it's a statement That is the discussion on Article, Article 2, that we've had an extensive review of and discussion. No amendments, so therefore Article 2 will be placed on the ballot for voting on March 14th. So the next article in the warrant, Article 3. Shall the Littleton School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 in this special warrant article for the purpose of initiating site evaluation, architectural, and engineering studies, and to cover the cost of necessary options to purchase land for the construction of elementary school facilities in the district. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation pursuant to RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the elementary school is completed or by June 30th, 2023, whichever is sooner. And when the vote happens, it's a majority vote is required, and that is recommended by the Littleton School Board. And to get it on the floor, we need a motion by the board.
I have a question.
Is it a question of
concerning this?
Of a point of order?
I don't really know at what
Is
point.
it relative to Article 3?
Yes.
Well, we'll.
No, it's not that. It's sorry, it's Article 2. Yeah, the operating budget.
Oh, so you want that one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was it already agreed
we're,
upon?
We're done.
It's done?
Yeah, we're done with that.
How did that even, I didn't even hear the yay.
Well, you actually don't have to vote.
It's just to be put on the, it's going to be
Ballot.
put on the ballot as is.
Yes.
What happens if you want to amend it?
Then you stand up and be recognized and you have an amendment, but.
Yeah, I didn't, I thought we were voting on, or you were voting on our Article 2 right there.
Well, let me, I don't want to shut you off here.
No.
Because we've closed it, there would have to be a motion to reconsider, and then the voters would have to agree to reconsider in order to get it back open again.
No, I mean, it's worth a try. Okay, what I would like to ask, is
A
to.
procedural question? Is that what you want?
Okay. Yeah,
Well-
I would like to add, help me out here. It's my first time voting.
What Kim would like to do is make a motion to open Article 2 for rediscussion, for the purpose of rediscussion and amendment.
Amendment, yeah.
Reopen.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have to do the reconsideration. When we're done with this, our tradition is more of a couple of things. One is, once we're done with it, we agree that we're done with it, and it's not brought back up at a later date. That's a tradition we have here. And just for clarity, we have a tradition of kind of closing it out by the voters saying, yes, we're done with it.
Mhm.
But
I didn't hear that.
I know, but that's not required, is what I'm saying. Well, no, we can have a second, and the second would apply to reconsidering Article 2. And so there is a second, so anybody have serious discussion about that before we vote on it? All those in favor to reconsider Article 2, bring it back up on the floor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Okay, so the ayes have it, so what's your point?
And I'm not even sure that if I'm the best person to be doing this.
Well,
but
just
because
speak
obviously-
right into
Thank
the
you, Art.
Speak right into the mic.
Thank you, Art. I would like to add the instructional coach and the French teacher back in to the operating budget.
We don't know how much that costs.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
So
and if anybody else has
instructional
something that
coach.
they'd like us to consider.
And who is,
now is the
instructional
time.
coach and who else?
French teacher.
French teacher. So I would need that in writing.
Okay, I can write. I don't have a pen. Yeah, okay. I'm really concerned about the paras too, and I haven't heard properly how it's going to affect, but there are 4 paras. I'd like to know what the cost will be. I mean, we're here. I think those paras are really important to the teachers and the students and the kids who need the paras, believe me.
So we're waiting just for a moment for a number that you can attach to your motion, a dollar amount.
Is that how it works?
I have the dollar.
Yeah.
So that we're clear on the motion, you want the, whatever this amount is, dedicated for the instructional coach and the French teacher? Full-time.
French teacher and 4 paras.
Excuse me? Plus 4 paras?
She wants all of the staff returned to their original positions. Full-time French teacher, full-time instructional coach, 4 paras returned. That's what you would like to have returned to the budget.
That's 6.
Okay, this is, again, based on the budget reduction that was approved by the Board of Education for support staff position, $127,592. French, $58,342. Improvement in instruction, $116,252. Those are the dollars attached to those particular positions.
So the 127,592 was for what?
For support.
4 paras, okay. And for the full-time French, 342?
Correct.
Okay. And for the instructional coach, 116,252?
Yeah.
Correct.
And the total is?
No, but before you close that out.
Oh, we haven't closed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, we're just getting a number.
Okay.
352, 186? 352, 186. That's the number. Is that what you want included in your motion, ma'am?
What are 2 paras?
$302,186, and that would be for 2 paras instead of 4?
Otherwise,
Is that
it's
the right
3.
answer?
It's 352.
No, I just did the
Yeah.
figures that we just quoted.
I mean,
And reduced it to 2 pairs, and then the number for 2 pairs is 301.
You're saying it's 4 paras, that the actual math is 302.
no, it's public, you're a taxpayer.
No, four
They
paras
didn't
was
tell you what it was.
127,592.
So there you go.
Instructional coach was 116,252. And full-time French was 58,342. The total of those 3 figures is 302,186.
Okay. So 302,186, and that's for 4. All right. So let's, the one thing at a time now.
Yeah.
So the number is 302,186, which would include French teacher and 4 paras, and the instructional coach.
4 paras. You say 2.
Okay,
Allison.
now that's your motion?
You say 2.
Do we have a second? Is there a second to that motion? There is a second over here? Okay. So what's germane at this point is discussion regarding the amendment.
I want to know what the administrative position is before we can add it in.
Well, that's part of, that's,
No.
that's
No, the administrative.
the administrative position. Oh, before you, well, we're gonna handle this first.
We were talking about staff.
No, to add that back in there. We want to know how that's going to affect us
I know.
as a voter.
Yeah, we have to do one thing at a time. For this motion, we're dealing with the instructional coach, French teacher, and 4 paras.
Okay.
At a dollar, or a budget impact of 302,186.
That's 4 paras. An instructional coach and the French teacher.
Yeah.
Now, can I hear what the administrative position cut, how that's going to affect? Can we still discuss that?
Well, it's not.
Oh, no, we
it's-
have a motion now. Okay,
It's not really germane to this motion.
okay. It's, yeah.
And I think I understand your
It's-
question.
yeah,
What was-
it's a
what-
shame that
What
it's-
would the, yeah, no, I understand. No, I understand. All right, and you're saying that it is critical to how you vote on this, what the other amount is?
You're asking me 30 days from now to go vote on something that I don't.
Yeah, it's just.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Do we have that number?
We do. Administrative 117607.
117607 is the administrative number.
Did she say 177? That's, yeah. All right. I'm gonna have to go with my motion, and she can make another motion. You need them?
Well, I think I understand your point, and I think we're covering that. 17607, that's the administrative dollar amount. And I think we understand that you want to calculate that in the midst of.
No, I'd like to make my motion.
No, I
let's do
understand. No,
Mine, and then
but-
my amendment,
No,
I should say.
no, we understand it.
All right.
The other point, our legal expert says that.
Yeah.
Even though we've named a dollar amount, and even though we've named where we want it to go, the board isn't legally obligated to comply with that. It's not that they won't, but they're
Right,
not
right.
legally obligated.
That's fine.
All right, so discussion on the motion on the floor, which is the instructional coach, restoring that piece at 116,252. And then the French teacher with 4 paras, restoring that piece for 127,592. And that's 302,186, right?
You're allowed to discuss it? Okay. It's up for discussion now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would ask the board to, if it gets voted on, that you put this money back in for these positions. But I would ask that they cut that money from elsewhere in the budget, like one of the things that I was talking about, the 28th, be creative, 28,000 for field trips. Is it really necessary? You know, the kids could. Well, you know, you got gonna have to come from somewhere. I'm going to say this now. 6 years ago, $750,000 was cut from the town budget. And there were jobs lost that still have not, in every department, that have still not been replaced because this town will not replace them. And yet the town takes care of approximately 16,000 people who come into this town on a daily basis. Not just the citizens. The police and the fire and the highway department take care of all the people who come in to shop, to do everything else. Now I think it's time for the school to cut too. Okay, the $600,000 or the million or whatever it is this year. I think it's time that we can look at and be creative, really creative, to give the students. I've never had any kids, but I believe in education far greater than probably, I don't know, anyone. And I think it's very important because it's a vital thing for our democracy in this country to have an educated public. And I think there needs to be cuts just to give them a good education, not to have all the extra frills. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to need that in writing, that motion. All right, so, yes.
Okay, I want to speak again. You know, you're asking to put $419,000 back in to the school budget. After the school budget.
No, that 117 that was a side piece. The
Okay, so
discussion
you're
was
asking for
302. Yeah.
$302,000. That's over $250,000 back into the school budget. If you put it back into teachers, 68% of this education, this town, is salaries and benefits. So how are you going to come up with $300,000 and everything else to reduce that? Again, you got to think about the citizens of this town. One thing I learned while attending these meetings is 40% of the kids in your school district are in a poverty level. That means 40% of the parents in this town are in a poverty level. We can't keep affording to go up and up and up when our student count is going down. We've got to reduce costs somewhere. You can't put $302,000 back into the budget and put it back on the hands of those who are on fixed incomes like myself. My taxes just went up $800 a year. One gentleman was saying $150 a year, no big deal. This is going to be a lot more than $150 a year. But I'm looking to get back some of that $800 a year that my taxes went up in December unexpectedly. And there's a lot of senior citizens, there's a lot of people like myself on fixed incomes in this town who can't afford these kind of expenses. So I'm encouraging you, vote down putting $302 back into the budget because it's going to hurt people that aren't at this meeting. I don't know why they're not here, but it's going to hurt significant numbers of people in this town to put that back in. And the only place you can really cut your school budget at this point is salaries and benefits. And the other gentleman did talk and said the benefit level is 60% of the salary is the benefits. That's a lot of benefits. When I was working, I didn't get 60% benefits, and I don't get the increases that these teachers get every year, every single year. We've got to cut costs somewhere. Please help the people that are in this area that are on fixed incomes. Don't put it back in.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm on a fixed income, I'm a senior citizen, and at one point in my life, people extended themselves so that I could have a good education and a good life. I feel as a responsible person in this town, I need to do what I can do. And my taxes went up 900 plus as well. So I understand what he's talking about. And that increase from the federal government, which I also got, was 0.03%. It was a whole lot of nothing. But I feel so strongly about the French teacher. I mean, it's so important. And the instructional coach, I agree with that gentleman. You know, it's a hard thing for you to be told, oh, be creative. And looking at, you know, if a child only gets one field trip a year, that's a big deal, especially for low-income children. And the point is, if you ever want them to be not low-income children, they have to have an education so they can earn.
Okay, yes.
C'est moi. You never can make everybody happy. Never. Okay? Somebody wants an instructional coach. Somebody wants a new football. You can't do it all. So you look at your choices. You make your best choice. You pick good people to make those choices. They vote, hassle, argue amongst themselves, and come up with their best answer to try to come up with an answer to the town that'll make the townspeople feel like at least they gave us a decent break here. They're trying to do something. Now it comes down to, I don't know the rigmarole about what they can do now. It's a conscience issue. It's a conscience issue with all of us. But I agree with another speaker here. If you want that back, then give me something else. You can't have it all. And the kid isn't going to waste away if he doesn't have one particular item. You've got to make choices. Taxes are an issue. People are on limited budgets in many cases. I understand we're overwhelmed with the teaching society here today. That's tough. That's part of the problem with these SB2 deals, because we don't have the whole town here to get up and speak about this. So I would hope, I don't know how it could work, but I would hope that the school board would decide we made an effort to come up with a decent drop to the town. We should honor that, so if these people want this back, we're going to find something else. But we're not going to start gushing it back in, and pretty quick, there's no cut. Thank you.
Further discussion? Are you ready for the question? So, yeah, I think I have the essence of it. But. Okay, the motion is on Article 2 to add, actually, the numbers, that we need the numbers on here, please. The 116,252 for instructional coach. 58,342 for French teacher.
The French teacher already, if you've got her in there, is half-time. All we should be getting is the rest. Is that correct?
Okay, so is that the correct figure? Well, the figure that we're using is 302,186 total. That does not include that administrative piece. Okay. So the 302,186 should be in your motion. Motion was made and seconded.
That's a different motion after this. Do you get the paperwork for this motion here?
Excuse me? I do, yeah. But I need the money amount.
You can't write it down, you have the numbers?
Well, if you're agreeing. 302,186. All right, now that's the motion, and as long as we understand this, you're adding that amount to this year's budget. And the board has heard, the administration's heard what you want to use it for. But you know that they're not legally obligated, okay? So when you vote. What do you want? Well, no, we got to get this one, this first one taken care of.
That's for the amendments.
For the amendment. All right, just for clarification.
Yeah, just for clarification, when you say that the board isn't legally obligated, do you mean a monetary amount, or are you talking about the actual position? I'm asking that those positions, those particular positions, be put back into the operating budget. Is that not what will happen?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, what will you do then with, I
Well,
mean,
what
can
the
you tell
moder-
me what?
What the moderator had referred to earlier is, what this meeting has authority to do is to change the bottom line of the budget. You can tell the board how you would like them to spend that
Okay.
money, but they're not obligated to do what you tell them. All you can bind the district to is to
Okay.
change the bottom line amount of the budget.
Okay.
Okay? So with the motion that's pending, if you vote yes on the motion, you'll add $302,186, so the new figure will be $16,639,045. That's what it would change to if you vote yes. If you vote no, it will stay as posted at $16,336,859. Clear?
So, all those in favor of the amendment, say, no? Hold it. This is something that,
Signatories, they want a secret ballot vote on the amendment.
all right, okay. Before we vote, we have a petition by the board to require a secret ballot vote on this question, on the amendment. So, everybody that has one of these cards may proceed to a point where you'll get a yes or no ballot. You may have privacy if you want. There's a box up there. You can deposit the ballot in the box. And we'll give you time to vote.